Hey, I'm Marcus.
And I'm Nick.
We are working class nerds.
Cue the intro. That's right, we are Working Class Nerds, the podcast that gives you no information about your favorite information.
Today is Thursday, August 29th. Oh my God.
It's August 26th.
Let's do this again. Ready?
Just be Ron Burgundy. You got to read it.
Oh, shit.
Fuck you, San Diego.
Yeah. Stay classy, San Diego. Here we go. Hey, I'm Marcus.
And I'm Nick.
We are working class nerds.
Cue the intro. That's right. We are Working Class Nerds, the podcast that gives you no information about your favorite information.
Today is Thursday, August 26th, 2021, and you can find this 119 and the Summer is Almost Over podcast on Apple Podcasts, Buzzsprout, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and anywhere you can find a podcast in the entire galaxy. You can also watch me play video games Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays at twitch.tv/MarcusB814.
And you can see me play video games every single Monday night at twitch.tv/NickVern51.
And you can find the both of us on Twitter. I am at MarcusB814.
And I am at Nick Vern, that's NickVern. And this week's episode, we have a returning guest. This gentleman is a man of many, many talents. He hosts not one, but two podcasts, and he's a streamer. Without further ado, welcome to the show, Chill.
Hey, Marcus and Nick, how you guys doing?
Awesome, thank you so much. Chill, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Of course.
And what have you been up to?
Well, straight ahead for me, I've been doing the same thing for a little while, and I plan to for quite a while longer. The Ootinicast is now almost in its 10-year anniversary. We came out right before SWTOR itself. We came out in October of 2011.
That is so
December.
crazy.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
So crazy. It is amazing.
We did that for the first few years we're weekly, and now we're bi-weekly. But if you math that out, we just had episode 420. Amusingly, and so we had fun with that. A little bit of fun with that. I think we're on 421 now, and yeah, it's been amazing. It's been an amazing run. My other podcast is called Cryptobiography, and that is a fiction podcast I write every week, and then I just read what I write, essentially. And that's every Sunday, and I've been doing that a few years. I'm on episode 218 with that. So it's basically short stories, essentially, is what they end up being after a few weeks worth each. So,
I was going to say, and if two podcasts aren't enough, you also stream.
Yes.
How many days a week do you stream?
Every day. I stream every day. I'm on at least, I don't stream quite the way Kitty does, where he makes like a second job out of it, and he's on every day, but he's also on for 5, 6, sometimes even longer per day. That's pretty crazy. But I am on usually like 2 to 4 hours is pretty typical for me. But every day. Yep. And that's at Chill's Room, twitch.tv/Chill's Room.
Is it hard? Oh, we'll talk about more of it later, but is it hard to balance all three?
To a degree, yes. I would say, like, if life got any more complicated, I would have to cut back pretty quickly on probably the streaming, I would say. I would want to keep the podcast because those, involve, they're bigger deals to me than the streaming is. Essentially, the streaming is fun, but for me, it's an excuse to play SWTOR mostly. I play some League as well, but I mostly play SWTOR on it, and that it keeps my hand in so that I'm always kind of fresh for the Ootinicast. I'm never in a situation where I'm trying to talk about a game where maybe I haven't where I haven't played it for a while, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
In fact, if you might remember, Tio actually had to leave the Ootinicast, and that was his main reason. Is just he got too busy. He hadn't played the game for a while, or very sporadically, and he just wasn't fresh enough on the game, and so he didn't feel it was really. He felt like it wasn't no longer his place really to be a podcaster for a game that he wasn't actively playing. And I respected that, and I feel the same way. And I certainly wouldn't cut it cut streaming down to like nothing where I wouldn't do it at all. But if I found like life was getting really busy, I would find a way to cut that out first for me. But yes, it's a bit of a balance. I have a very weird life situation where I do not have to have a normal job. So that is also a big factor, actually. Like, I would not recommend people doing like multiple podcasts and daily streaming if you also have a 40-hour-a-week job.
Right.
Like Kitty has a big streaming job, and he has a regular job, and he does do the Ootinicast, but I try to keep that easy for him. He basically does, I do most of the show notes, I do the editing and stuff like that. I keep it easy for him.
Yeah.
And for him, it's not a huge time commitment, which is great.
It's like I say about Nick. Nick's the talent. I bring Nick
Right.
in. Nick's the guy that brings everybody to the show. We just put it together.
Right.
Go ahead.
Having said that, and I'm sure you guys can back me up to some degree, once you have your podcast technically set up, like here's how you upload each episode, here's the program you're going to use for editing and stuff like that, it's pretty turnkey, and it doesn't take like the massive amount of time that you might think it might. Like if you haven't ever done a podcast before, if you've never had a podcast, but you're thinking about doing one, the hard part is like getting things set up. But once it's actually rolling, it's pretty straightforward. I find it takes some time. It takes some time, but it's not difficult, and you can make it go a lot faster too. There's little cheats to make like editing go quicker and stuff like that. So
I will say to everybody, go back to the original Working Class Nerds.
Oh God,
the beta test, and just listen to it.
Right.
And then come back and listen to like 30 seconds of it, and then come back here. It doesn't sound like the same show.
It's absolutely true. Absolutely true. And it's the same with the Ootinicast. We did a couple of really early ones that are basically were just tests, and they were just, they sound very little like what we ended up with later on.
I would say for me, the Nick and Marcus combo, it actually works really well. Mm-hmm. So I handle all the pre-show stuff.
Yep.
So I set up the notes, I find the guests, I get the topics, like I handle all that. Nick is a way smarter. Nick is way better than I am with words in typing form.
Yeah.
So I'll type his notes and he'll just erase the whole thing, but he'll get the general sense of what it is.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And then I reword it to sound better.
But then the post show, Nick does it all. So after we're done recording, I click save. As soon as I'm done with that, Nick steps into the chair and he edits the podcast. So it's almost like, for me, it's like a 1-2 combo. I handle the front end, he handles the back end, and it works. So I do know what you mean about, having that balance between the show.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, what you were saying about it being like turnkey, I mean, I think tonight's a great example. Marcus and I had the notes set up ahead of time, but then basically we sat down, plugged the microphones in and went, there's not a lot of extra stuff we have to do now.
Well, right. Just going with that, Nick, it's in my old house, I had to set up a table, a podcast, like the mixer, run all the cables because I didn't have space for it.
Right.
But now in my new house, I have like a shelf that's next to it. My mixer stays plugged into my computer.
Nice.
Every day. So all we have to do is attach the mics, attach the boom arms, and then it's going to be even better. I would say probably by Thanksgiving, our studio will be done, which is in another part of my house that I built. Once that's done, I mean, the microphone boom arms will be hanging on the walls. All we'll literally have to do is pull the boom arms out and click record, and it's just going to be on. So for that, it's going to be really great.
Slick. Yeah,
yes.
That will be great.
But what was I going to say? But back to your streaming. Do you find yourself a story first streamer or a chat first streamer?
Ooh, okay. I would say, well, it's kind of an awkward question because actually I think I focus more on the chat when it's really rolling. But on the other hand, most of what I'm doing when I'm playing is the story. Like I've been getting more into like Galactic Starfighter. I have an actual Galactic Starfighter character that I'm on multiple times a week now. And I also have a PvP character, so I'm doing PvP weekly as well. But historically, what I usually do is just a lot of alting and a lot of going through the story with different characters, different genders, different like light side, dark side choices and stuff like that. So the story is very important, but I don't like necessarily like stop talking for the conversations or anything like that. So yeah, I would say definitely like, when people are asking me stuff in chat or there's something going on in chat, I'm usually acknowledging that over the story itself. I would say it would be different if I was the kind of streamer who, like, there's a lot of streamers out there who, like, their thing is like, let's play the newest game and play it like, so it's like new game every time you watch me, and then it becomes more about the personality to draw people in. But then like as far as the game they're talking about, then it's that particular game. And then I could see in that case where maybe, you want to experience the story a little bit more. But for me, for SWTOR, it's a lot of fun to just see the story. Maybe do like right now I'm doing Lee Van Cleef, which is very, very dark, like Angel Eyes from Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and also using only guns. Like I'm not using any rockets or bombs or anything like that, and I'm on a bounty hunter. And so it's really limited the stuff I can do, but it's a lot of fun. And then of course he's like really, really dark as well. And so I get to see the dark side stuff, which tend not to see as much. Partly I'm aimed towards the light side, and then partly it's because I tend to do cosplay characters. And a lot of them tend to be superheroes. So I see a lot of the light side, and so it's nice to do the dark side. But anyway, that's sort of how I do it. It's like the story is very important, but if things are cooking in the conversation, I'm just talking right over the combos sometimes.
That I understand.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think, Nick?
Oh, I think it's awesome.
What have you been doing?
What have I been doing? Well, I've been watching a lot of different Marvel content, honestly.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
So, Chill, what were we going to say?
Yeah, just Disney Plus for the win, man.
Yeah. So, I don't know if you're not on the up and up on Marvel content. What If came out a couple weeks ago, and they're on episode 3 is now out. I did not watch episode 3 before the show.
Me neither.
I have not seen it either, but I've seen the other two.
Yes. Full disclosure, I fell asleep by accident and took like an hour and a half accidental nap before the show. So I was gonna watch it, but then I, fell asleep. It's one of those things where it's like you lay on your bed and with all the lights on, you're like, I'm just gonna play on my phone for a second and just relax after work, and then you just crash. And then I woke up to Marcus calling me like, "Hey, are you on your way over?" Like, I will be in about 2 minutes.
but that's how it happens.
Yeah.
Sometimes like when you're done and you just with doing whatever you have to do, you sit down and it feels so good to just sit down, and you're sitting there and all of a sudden you're like, wow, this is really comfortable.
Yeah. Good night.
Night.
Yeah. That's exactly what happened. I had all my stuff put away for after work. Like dishes were done. All the above. I ate something, and I was just like, I get to decompress until the podcast, and out like a light. But anyways, Marvel What If, I think it's pretty interesting. The stories aren't super compelling because it's a lot of retelling stories you already know with different characters, or like the events are slightly different. If you're not familiar with the premise, it's a lot of different scenarios of things that you already know about. I'll give you an example. The first episode, there's a little small change where in Captain America, the original movie, Peggy Carter stays in the room instead of going up to the observation deck. And so certain things in the story change. And long story short, Steve does not get the super soldier serum. Instead, Peggy does. So Peggy becomes the super soldier from back in the 50s, which is pretty... And the episode plays out with her as a super soldier, which is interesting because it has a lot of branching effects you might not think about. But... That's cool. And then the second episode, I'll just let you watch it, but I think it's cool. I think it's not super duper entertaining because they're not new stories, but they're stories you're familiar with like a different flavor to them.
I personally loved the Peggy Carter Captain America episode.
Yes.
I think that they tied together Stark. Steve Rogers still had his part because he was Iron Man.
Right.
Yeah,
Like
that was
there
cool.
was right.
was cool.
There's a bunch of things, but here's the other thing. I feel like they're piecing it together for the multiverse of madness.
Yeah.
The Doctor Strange movie that's coming. I feel like these are going to tie in a little bit.
Right.
The second episode with the Black Panther and Star-Lord, I was middle of the road on that episode.
I feel like the plot didn't make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I kind of felt the same way. There were some fun bits and everything, but it did feel to me like they were trying to just bring whatever in close that they could,
Right.
just for the sake of, because this is a what if episode, so like everything has to be like a reference to something else.
Right.
And I think they need to relax and like hopefully they'll like actually start to tell their own stories eventually. I
Right,
understand
right.
why maybe the first few episodes are like this, where they're highly reliant on referencing the movies and the TV shows and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
But I do hope that, yes, there'll still be references and it will start at a place where close to where we know, but that we can actually just kind of have a story, but that just wildly goes off in its own tangents,
Right.
like what happens if Uncle Ben doesn't die right after Peter Parker gets his powers, like something like that. And it's like, does he even become Spider-Man? Does he become a good guy? Maybe he becomes a bad guy, or, maybe he doesn't really learn to watch the control of his powers.
Right.
Becomes
more of an
the way he
anti-hero.
does. And then what does that lead to? And, stuff like that could be really, really cool. And, and I hope hope to see something like that later on. But yeah, for some reason, I don't know why, because both of the first two episodes were very highly referential to other movies, but I do feel like it felt a little more clever and a little better put together in the first episode.
Agreed. I think that it might be stemming largely from, like the whole episode, if you don't know, is premised on T'Challa being the one who gets abducted instead of Peter Quinn or Quill. I forget his last name. It's Quill.
Peter Quill. Yeah.
Thank you. And I feel like a lot of what makes Star-Lord is because he's Peter Quill, and because he's like that planet star figure person's son. So he's like half
Ego. Yeah.
Ego. Thank you. He's half. He's got like half of Ego's powers essentially. So like that's part of what makes Star-Lord. Whereas T'Challa, he's essentially a human, but like if he didn't go through his Black Panther stuff yet because his dad's still alive, then I don't know. He doesn't have like the superpowers yet. Like if he gets abducted as a kid, he doesn't become Black Panther. But in this, he like kind of has some of the Black Panther powers too. So it doesn't quite make sense as to how this version of Star-Lord's like, an upgraded human basically. But beyond that, I thought it was pretty interesting, but it just sort of didn't quite make sense. You had to suspend some extra disbelief to really get through it. But outside of that, in terms of other Marvel stuff, we got a full trailer for Spider-Man No Way Home, which was really cool.
Wicked.
Have you seen it, Marcus?
Very trippy.
Yes.
Very trippy. Yeah.
Very trippy. I did not. I think I heard way back when that Doctor Strange was going to be in it. I didn't realize he was going to be like a main character. I thought it might be an appearance, but from the trailer, he is like all involved all the time. A couple of quick highlights. If you haven't seen it, pause the show and go watch it. But they're bringing back. Basically, the trailer outlines that Peter, in the previous movie Far From Home, he gets outed as Spider-Man. That's obvious in the trailer.
Spider-Man.
Yeah,
Right.
Spider-Man
J.
is
Jonah Jameson.
Yep.
I love that it's J. Jonah Jameson that does that too.
Me too. I love that actor. He goes to Doctor Strange to say, "Hey, can you like make it so that no one knows I'm Spider-Man? Because like this is really affecting people I love, and
Yes.
I don't care if people I know selfishly, but like it's affecting my family big time, and this is not cool." And so they go through it, and it causes some substantial hijinks when Doctor Strange
Right.
casts the spell,
Cause some problems. Yeah.
big time, like multiverse type problems or
Yeah.
Spider-Verse, if you will, because you get for sure the original Doc Ock from the Raimi trilogy, like with Tobey.
The original Spider-Man movies.
Yeah, the original Spider-Man
Yeah, I
movies.
love
And
Tobey
then-
those.
Maguire.
yes. And then also you
Tobey.
see like a Green Goblin pumpkin bomb, but you hear William Dafoe's voice. So that's like Tobey Maguire Spider-Man's Green Goblin also.
Yeah, that's
So which is
Harkening
really
back,
cool.
which is great. Yeah.
And then I think people were debating in one shot, you can see like this big hulking figure like blasting through a window or something behind Peter. And it was a debate as to whether it's the Lizard from The Amazing Spider-Man or Venom, but I'm pretty sure it's the Lizard. And New Rockstars thinks so too, and I trust their content. But so that would be pulling from The Amazing Spider-Man also. So my point being, we have confirmed all these villains from the other two Spider-Man franchises. So I'm really hoping at least we get a little cameo from the two like other Spider-Mans.
So we are.
Yeah.
So I guarantee Miles Morales will be in it.
Well,
and Spider-Gwen and Spider-Pig. I want Spider-Pig so bad, or Spider-Ham or whatever. I want it
Into
all.
the Spider-Verse was just such a great movie.
Yes.
That's fantastic.
So when I ripped my arm, when I ripped my bicep off my arm a couple of years ago, I must have watched that movie 5 times because I couldn't leave the bed. And it was the last thing played on Amazon. And I was in so much pain that I just kept watching it. That movie is so good. Yeah. And if they continue to, if they make Spider-Man like awesome, like this could go, like they could, I think Spider-Man and, oh my God, the other character. Doctor Strange and the Guardians of the Galaxy and Thor, they can carry Marvel through the next phase.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
I agree.
Right.
But I, like a weak bitch, I have not watched the new Spider-Mans.
Yeah, which is crazy to me.
You know why? It's because they're not on Disney Plus.
Yes, they are.
No, they are not. Because Fox still owns it in Sony.
Oh, right.
And they are not on Disney Plus yet. And they're the only way you can get them is if you buy them.
Oh, I see.
You can't stream them on a service.
You can't rent them on like Amazon Video or something?
I don't want to rent them.
It's like $4.
Yeah, but I don't want to, like, I like to have it, like, I'll play half the movie and then, like,
have it if you're going to pay for, if you're going to pay money directly for it.
Well, I don't mind paying $4 to watch the movie, but the likelihood that I'm going to sit on a couch for 2 hours
and watch
the whole thing at once is probably pretty slim. Right. But there's nothing wrong. I don't mind watching like an hour and waiting for like a lull and shutting it off and like doing whatever I have to do.
Yeah, I get you.
And come back. But once you start a rental, you have 24 hours to finish it. And I can't guarantee that I'll be able to do that.
That's fair. I get you. Actually, speaking of which, I did that with Into the Spider-Verse. I watched the trailer earlier in the week, and then I think last night I started watching it, but I was like falling asleep halfway through because it was, bedtime. But
midnight.
Yeah, it was like midnight. But I'm super excited for it. Also, like, there's some timey-wimey stuff happening with Doctor Strange. He's got I forgot what the amulet's called, but his necklace that he used to hold the Time Stone. It's like the amulet of Agamemnon or something like that. So in this timeline, in theory anyway, that's destroyed. So either he rebuilt it or something. Like Thanos crushed that in his hand originally in either Infinity War or Endgame. But so either he remade it or made a similar one or something, or like went back in time and got it or something like that. Something's going on with that because he's wearing it in every single scene in the trailer. So I don't know what's happening there, but
yeah, I always get nervous whenever I see either time travel or multiverses used as a plot device, because like while it can be used well and there are good stories using those, it can also get really either messy, confusing, or just too like the plot becomes completely reliant on the time travel or the multiversing to sort of wrap everything up.
Yeah, it's like that's the answer for everything.
It becomes the ultimate answer. Right, exactly. Like, when we had Infinity War and then Endgame, it's like they did okay with that. I think at least they didn't make it like so that the time travel was like the sort of a Deus Ex Machina at the end. It was like the whole plot of the movie. So you kind of had to go along with it, which is fine. Also, the fact that I also kind of appreciated the fact that they decided to make it so that time travel isn't going to just rewind everything, but instead it only allows you to fix certain things, because like they weren't able to snap it and have everything just completely be undone, they had to snap it in a way that just everyone came back, but they still lost 5 years and everything's really weird for them. And,
Right.
like there's still problems involved, which was kind of cool. Cause like time travel can get really out of hand. Like it was really done really well, for example, with, the second Harry Potter movie.
Yes.
Was it the third?
The third one.
Third.
Yep.
Yeah, not Chamber of Secrets. It was the third
Prisoner
one.
of Azkaban.
Prisoner, right? And that one was really well done because like everything that happened the first time through already had the second time through already affecting it, but you just didn't know. Like
Right.
there was hints, but actually nothing else was changed. Like it was already changed because of the second time around. But
Right.
then when you see the second time around, you can kind of work out how everything kind of worked itself out, which is really cool. But then there's like Cursed Child, which is just a nightmare of like really bad time travel storytelling, where it just like everything's
Yeah.
a mess, and it completely destroys like a lot of the power of some of the main storyline, and it's like,
Right.
why did you do this? So I always get nervous because, and it's the same with like the Terminator. Like the first couple were great, and then it just gets so messy. It's like, how does this timeline even exist in the first place at some point?
Right.
But anyway,
Have
so
you
I'm hopeful, but I'm nervous. Let's put it that way.
yeah, of course, as you should be. Have you seen Loki yet?
I did. That was a lot of fun. Very weird. I don't know what to make of it because it's like, I'm not sure what in the end they were really doing with it. I mean, I guess they were setting something up for the future, but
Yeah. Well, I think
it got very strange.
I think it'll be cleared up in Multiverse of Madness. I think that's
Right.
what this is all culminating to, between WandaVision, where Wanda is obviously getting all these powers and like can manipulate space-time herself, and then she made it her own world there, and then that was
a really good series.
I enjoyed that a lot. Then you've got at the end of Loki, you've got you had this one sacred timeline, which is really like a bunch of different timelines sort of following the same path, but not too many large branches.
Right.
It's like they're like almost like a rope is the way I think about it. Where
And
like they're close enough, but like nothing is too crazy. And then at the end of it, now it's like there's no rules. The cuffs are off. Anything can happen, and it's complete and utter chaos. And then in this movie, No Way Home, I think we're gonna get even more of that. Like they're completely breaking the space-time stuff, and I don't know where this falls in relation to the events of Loki, because if it's after the fact, then maybe like this is even making it that sort of
it is
multiverse
definitely
worse.
Well,
No.
So I think it happens. I think the way I'm starting to understand it is, in my opinion, it's gonna like when Strange does his stuff with like messing up the multiverse, I think that's all at the same time as Loki and Wanda.
Yeah.
And I think they're all connected.
I agree. That's what I'm trying to say is,
and
all three of these are like contributing to the unraveling of their actual
that's
timeline.
correct. Yes. And for me, I felt the same way you did, Chill, about Loki.
Mm-hmm.
Like WandaVision is the best made TV show of my lifetime. Like
I
of
can
that
see that.
type of show. Like you could say The Sopranos,
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones is whack.
For me, it's Breaking Bad. But
Okay,
so,
Breaking Bad,
exactly.
yeah.
So like you could say all those shows are the greatest shows, but like the innovation and WandaVision and the way the show progressed to the end, it is the best.
They literally took styles of the sitcoms from the 50s and the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and the 90s and then the aughts.
Right.
That was so fun to watch.
Agreed.
Right. So for me, it was probably the best show ever made. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Ever made.
I could go with that. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, and the other shows are still great in their own genre.
Yeah, their own flavor.
Like I look at The Sopranos, Game of Thrones, and Breaking Bad as not like a sitcom kind of.
Yeah, it's a different format.
It's a different format show, but all of even Loki. So I watched the first episode of Loki and I was like, okay, that was good. Then Nick turned me on to the YouTube channel New Rock Stars.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so they break down all of these shows.
Like all the Easter eggs, all the hidden meetings.
Yep. Hidden
So-
meetings and references and stuff like that. Mhm.
Right.
So I watched.
I watched some like that, some of them too.
So I watched the first episode of Loki, and then I watched that like breakdown of it, and I was like, "Oh my god!" And I watched the episode 1 again, and my eyes were open.
Yeah, I feel like the new Rockstars content, it's almost like watching 2 episodes. because
Right, exactly.
There's like what I catch the first time through, which is, the general plot, when what things literally happen. And then like I'll watch the new Rockstars breakdown, and it'll be like a whole second episode's worth of content that they're explaining I missed.
And I love them so much. I bought a Miss Minutes T-shirt.
Yeah, me too. Well, yeah, you bought it for me, but
Well,
That's
you know, what I
awesome.
mean.
Well,
Yeah, so-
Tara Strong voices Miss Minutes, and she's also a voice actor for SWTOR. So there you go.
See, I did not know that.
really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh.
But
she does Risha as the smuggler companion, and she does Holiday, Theron Cedric's buddy companion of your companion.
No kidding.
I'll show a master.
Mhm.
And she's also in Fairly Odd Parents.
She was
And-
also Timmy on Fairly Odd Parents back in the day, and she also
Oh
did
my
other
God.
stuff too. Yeah, she's really got quite an IMDb page.
Powerpuff Girls, Little
Powerpuff
Mermaids,
Girls.
Teen Titans
Yeah,
Go,
and that pony thing, My Little Pony. She does
Little
one
Pony.
of those.
Rugrats.
Rugrats.
Dynamite.
Rugrats.
Wow.
Rugrats. That's bringing me back to my
For-
childhood.
Yeah,
There's a
for me,
lot
it's,
of
it's
things.
for me out of her thing. Besides SWTOR, of course, it's Fairly Odd Parents. Timmy Turner. That's pretty amazing.
Oh, yeah, for
Because,
sure.
My son kind of liked it when he was a kid and stuff like that. So it was like, yeah,
I watched that almost every day after school for a good chunk of time. That was awesome.
It was a fun show. It had like 8 seasons or something like that too.
Yeah. That just blew my mind.
Yeah.
All right. What else was I going to talk about? Oh, so Horizon Zero Dawn, my stream game, which is awesome. Thank you everybody in the nerds community for watching my streams Monday nights.
Nice.
This Monday was epic, just like last Monday. Horizon Zero Dawn's getting even cooler and cooler. Like I just got an ability where I can actually tame and ride the machines. So like that's really cool. I don't have to kill them all the time. I can like use them to fight for me, which is awesome. The only sort of tricky part for that mechanic is I have to sneak up on the animal to do that, or the machine to do that. But still, who cares if I can, get 1 or 2 friendly before I start a fight? That's awesome.
The other thing too, Nick, is what's awesome about Horizon Zero Dawn is you're through like complete tutorial mode.
Right.
So now it's like you have to remember how to play the game
Right.
and like what you were doing.
Which I will say is kind of tricky, only playing the 1 day a week. Like I don't want to play outside of stream
Of course.
because like I don't want to I want my viewers to like go along the story with me, but like at the same time I'm like, oh, I want to keep playing because it's wicked interesting. And like selfishly speaking, it's fun. But yeah, I can't I feel like I'm cheating on the stream if I play outside of stream. But speaking of stream stuff, it's awesome. Another awesome thing happened this Monday. I got raided by a person I do not know, is not in the nerds community. Their name is One Fei Fei, Faye. And she plays Horizon Zero Dawn also. It just happened to raid me with a bunch of people
cool.
because I was playing Horizon Zero Dawn. She's like, yep, hey, just like to raid new people. Have fun, glad to see people playing this game. That was awesome. I never had that happen before. Yeah, typically I've had, Marcus or Kamiri or lots of other folks raid me before, but that's all people that I know through the nerds community. But you know what I mean? This is the first completely random person. It was really flattering. It was cool.
Dude, no. You can't undersell this.
Okay.
Okay. It is a big deal. And Chill knows when you get raided by somebody, even if you know them,
Yeah.
or even more so if you don't know them, that community is rating your channel and bringing their people saying this person is let's say a safe place,
Yeah.
or somebody I would like to support.
Right.
And then even more so that person, what was the person's name?
One Faye, basically.
Okay.
Just called him Faye.
Yeah. All right. So Faye rated your channel and was like, I hope this guy's not a douche.
Right. They're taking a risk on me.
They're
too.
taking a
Yeah.
huge risk.
Especially because I don't exactly look not douchey on stream. I'm wearing a Hawaiian shirt unbuttoned with a
See,
gold chain.
I think you
which
look
is pretty
all-
great.
Oh, I think you look ultra douchey.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Like I
Yes.
look like it's on purpose, you know. Like,
Right.
Yes.
Right.
but like it's a big risk for the other person, you know, and I just appreciate that they took the risk for me.
Well, and so for me, for you, like it's that one point in a stream, like your stream career, where
Yeah.
you're like, holy shit, there's a community outside the people from our community already.
Right.
And it's such a great feeling.
Yeah.
And it changes your whole mindset, I believe, in stream.
It was weird.
Yeah.
It was, like,
yeah.
go ahead, Marcus.
It
Sorry.
does. Yeah, absolutely.
It's so awesome. I'm so happy for you. It is tough because I only do story stuff on Saturday nights.
Yeah.
And I only play my story, that one class story, on Saturday nights.
Right.
And I do understand what you're saying, because by the end of the week, you're like, what was I doing?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like sometimes, like I'll in the middle of the week, I'll be like, oh, I really, really, really want to play, but I don't want to take that away from the chat
Exactly.
or the stream.
Yeah.
Because if somebody knows that you're playing the game, and what if they've played it and you're getting up to their favorite part of the game?
Yeah. I love this one mission or this one side
Or
quest. I can't wait to watch them do it.
Huge plot twist
Yeah.
that your mind is going to melt, and then you play it on your own, and they're like, wait a minute, did I miss a stream? Oh, no, I decided to play it on Wednesday. Oh.
Yeah. That's
Wah,
not cool.
wah.
Yeah.
So, like, yes, I do understand what
Yeah.
you're saying. Sorry.
No, I was just, it's crazy. It was a wild ride, like realizing that Faye was not like in the nerds community, basically. Just being like,
I hope
Oh.
you got her to join the Discord.
yeah, of course. But, I got to set up those little alerts, by the way.
I can show you how that's easy.
That like scroll through. That's cool. But yeah, it was awesome. I had an awesome stream, and I'll be streaming again next Monday, 8:30 to 10:30 Eastern Standard Time. Marcus, how's it going, and what have you been up to?
Holy cowabunga. So we have been progging Explosive Conflict Nightmare for very,
I know.
very, very long time.
Whew.
Yes. And Chill, progression rating is not for the week of like the faint of the week or the week of
Faint of heart.
Faint of heart. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
Mhm.
The week
Because
of Constitution.
like
Whatever.
you can spend an entire night on the first boss because
Yeah.
the team chemistry just isn't perfect that night.
Yeah.
And then you one shot the
Right.
second boss, one shot the third boss, and now you're working on the fourth boss. And so we've pretty much gotten to a point where we get good work on the final boss, which is Kephis, the first Kephis.
Yeah.
And
The OG Kephis. Yeah.
OG Kephis. I like that. So
That term actually applies to him too.
yes, this week we got Kephis to come down off the walker 7 or 8 times, and we
Nice.
really, really like. I learned how to like face tank him. My chat was exploding with helping me. Like I can't think. Like okay, there's a chat tag. Okay, there's a tag you can put on your thing, like no backseat gaming or backseat gaming allowed.
Yeah.
I have backseat gaming allowed because I want all the help, right?
Right.
And like I tell everybody, there's
Right.
only one rule to the entire nerds community is don't be a douchebag. As long as you follow that rule, we're going to get along great. You want to swear? No problem. Just don't be a jerk.
Yeah.
But everybody was helping me. They're like, Marcus, when you land, do this move. And then when you get the first dot, use this move, and then you should be okay to stand there and take it until he jumps in the air, and then you move on to the next cooldown. There was one point, and you guys will laugh. So let's say I'm not going to tell you what keybinds they are because I'm not going to throw everybody for a loop. But
They're on your mouse, right?
no, my defensive cooldowns, when I went to hit them, I was almost dead. I used like 3 major defensives to survive all at one time. I like freaked out and I hit all 3, and my chat exploded like, dude, you just used all 3 of your defensives at the same time. You don't need to do that. And I was like, I was melting. because I was
full
freaking out.
panic. Yeah.
Full panic mode, like save me.
Full
And-
button mashing.
Yeah, full button mashing.
Like Mortal Kombat at the arcade.
But as I said, as customary, like I've been working on beating a nightmare operation for about a year and a half. I've never beat an entire nightmare op. And when this happens,
You're not starting with an easy one. Holy crap.
well, I don't know which one is easy.
Yeah, well, none of them are easy, I guess, but
Yeah.
holy cow. I mean,
Well-
EC, even back in the day when they only had like the two hard, the harder, the basic and the harder version, it's like the hard version was just brutal. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the one that Tio and I, when we were all doing Operation Progression back in the day, that we were banging our heads against that for so long, man. That was just rough. I don't even want to think about doing Nightmare on that.
Well, right. So but it feels good until when you get to so the walker died a couple times last night and it was only
that's
kept us on
awesome.
the ground. That's such a good feeling. So
Mhm.
I definitely think next week might be our week. And
Ooh.
I don't know what my emotion's going to be when I finally get a full nightmare clear.
Oh my God, that's going to be amazing.
I'll probably hear you yelling from Ludlow.
I don't know.
Just 20
Am
minutes
I gonna scream and freak out, or am I gonna cry? Like, what emotion comes out when you fight? Like, I've worked so hard to get to this point.
Yeah.
Like, wow, right? And this past week, I got legendary finally because I raid so much. I've never finished all the class stories, and because of streaming, I finally did.
Yeah.
And that was a great feeling too, because now that's a check mark done.
Yeah. Now you're like a real SWTOR person. You got legendary status.
Right. But I will say BioWare, and I know the game's been out for 10 years, but you should make it a little bit bigger of a deal when you beat every class story. Like, you should get this big achievement that pops up on your screen that says you are now legendary.
Right.
Yeah.
Or you are now legend. Wait for it. Dairy.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or something like that.
Yeah.
But
hey, you do get the flare, and the flare is one of the best ones in the game. I still think,
yes,
even after all this time.
Sure.
It's basically the SWTOR symbol, essentially, with a lot of gold. I love it. I use it almost exclusively.
Right.
Oh,
And so I'm with you on that. So it's like streaming has brought so many successes for me, and it feels really, really good. But when we beat Kephis, I'll be doing a 30-day subcode and giving away, this is one gift or one raffle, 30-day subcode and 2,400 cartel coins.
Wow.
Wow.
That's a big old prize.
Listen,
That's a nice prize.
My chat has been with me all this time. This, when we beat, we progged the hard mode Duxin, the final boss there. We progged Gods from the Machine. We've been through it all. It's time to get a win.
So awesome.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Okay.
Wait a minute. Never mind. Go ahead.
Okay, so Destiny 2 just came out with a new season. As you guys know, that is my I'm addicted to this game kind of game. I don't stream it. As you guys know, people have been asking for it, but I don't want to take away from SWTOR streams, and I cannot stream more than 3 days a week. I just can't.
Yeah.
So I've been playing that. The news is crazy. You want to talk about a roadmap for the next year? They dropped the hammer on the next year of content, and it's amazing. So then the final thing is this year I was like, you know what? I want to buy the new FIFA game. Just because I feel like I enjoy it. That's a game where you can sit down, play a 20-minute match, and get your fix, because I love soccer or football, and
Me too.
get that little itch of playing the game. Even if I play it 10 times, it's worth it to me. Here's the bullshit. The PC version will not have any of the FIFA 22 updates to the engine.
What?
It is the FIFA updates are only coming to the Xbox and the PlayStation. So the PlayStation and the Xbox version are the superior version.
That doesn't make any sense.
It's because they don't want to have to work to port it to the PC.
That's bizarre.
Well, because on the Xbox and PlayStation, it's one way that game can run. On a PC, you have to have the minimum requirements to play the game, and then the ladder for the recommended. You know what I mean?
Right.
So they've got to work it a lot more to balance the whole thing,
Yeah.
where they could just put out the 21 version with the 22 graphics and just put it out there. EA, you suck.
That does suck. That's lame. I like FIFA too, but
either way, I'm excited. It's pretty exciting. So now, fellow streamer OG, great dude. He asked me to say they're doing a Halloween costume contest 2021, heroes versus villains. The sponsors are OG, and there's a few other people. All entries must be submitted between October 1st and October 22nd.
Uh-huh.
You can enter up to 2 costumes, however, cannot be on the same tune. All entries must be also submitted with a picture of who you are portraying. All decisions are final. Winners to be announced on October 29th. They're saying that the prizes are billions of credits, 60-day time card, blah, blah, blah. I will ask who to send this to. It doesn't say it on this flyer, but...
Oh, it says for more details, please check their Discord and has a link to it.
Oh, okay. So we'll put this link in the Discord, and we'll put this picture in it. We'll maybe make another channel.
Yeah.
Just for this Halloween event, because
Yeah.
everybody loves costume contests.
Mhm.
I mean,
I do.
last night in my chat, they were talking about some loincloth.
Okay.
And they're like, I want the loincloth. And I'm like, what is the loincloth? And I'm guessing it's just some pretty skimpy underwear.
Yeah, it's like Slave Leia has like the skirt that only covers the front and the back.
Yes.
That's a loincloth, basically.
Oh, okay.
Because it's a cloth that covers your loins.
Yeah.
Old-timey term. I think my favorite costume I've ever done was I was Rick from Rick and Morty, and I had like I had a legit like wig, like with the blue hair and a lab coat and like this shirt, correct colored shirt and everything.
Sure.
And I drew like a little bit of like puke on my face, kind of, and had a flask and a portal gun. It was awesome. But Marcus, what do we have in SWTOR news?
Spicy incoming.
Spicy incoming.
Angry Marcus on the way.
Uh-oh. Let me read the title while Angry Marcus is charging. So as of...
I'm making the spirit bomb, and I'm aiming it towards the operative and the sniper.
So now on PTS, first look at the sniper and operative combat styles. Want me to read the first paragraph? I'll cue it up while your spirit bomb is charging. Since our live stream in July, players have had the opportunity to access our public test server and give us initial feedback on the updates we're making to combat styles. Following the Jedi Guardian and Jedi Sentinel, we are now adding the updated sniper and operative combat styles to the PTS. So before we get into the details of how players can access this content, we wanted to share some of the philosophy behind our changes to the Imperial Agent. Marcus?
Well, you know what their philosophy is?
What?
The devs play the operative and the sniper, so we're going to take away all of the moves of the Jedi Knight and the Sentinel. Well, let me rephrase. The Mara and the Jug.
Yeah.
And we're going to make sure that the operative and the sniper stay OP and the best of the best in the game. I am so hurt by this. And I knew this was going to happen because like the whole thing about an operative is being able to stealth out, hide around a corner, roll, do all these things to evade because you're an operative, right?
Yeah.
But when you're taking key abilities from a Jedi, now mind you, this is Star Wars. Isn't the Jedi Knight supposed to be the most powerful force person in the galaxy?
Pretty much. Yeah. And the Sith should clash with them. Yeah.
But in SWTOR, the Jedis are nothing compared to mercs, sorks, and
Operatives.
operatives.
Yeah. That's not cool. You got to balance everything, you know?
Crickets. So I got salty on this.
Of course.
And, here's the other thing that I don't understand. So fast forward, I'm being positive, Marcus, now.
Okay.
They want us to test the class combat changes with all the new abilities.
Yeah.
But yet, you're capped at level 75. Character copy is still not available, so you're going to have to make your own character, then make all your bar moves to get to be where you remember it. Then the set bonuses are not enabled during this phase of the PTS.
Okay.
And most of your ability mobs are functional, but some will be marked in development to clarify that maybe various stages of development not 100% functional, as the ability tree is whip.
Work in progress.
Why release something if it's not ready? And this is the thing, and you guys, everybody says to me all the time, oh, Marcus, it's a PTS, it's a public test server. You're not testing anything except you're throwing the abilities on the bar that you're accepted. You're okay, we're purging half of the abilities. Here's the ones we have. Let me know what you think. Well, in the new era, Chris Schmidt just did an interview on the Escape podcast with Max and Seema.
Yep.
And he said that our current set bonuses in the new era will be null and void.
Okay.
So you're going to need new gear. So now you're testing something with gear that isn't going to be yours, that isn't going to be right. And and now they're telling you, let me know, does it feel like you're playing an operative? Does it feel like you're playing a Jedi? No, you're making me choose between two of my favorite moves. Hey, you're a Jedi. You can't throw your saber anymore. Say the fuck what? Right.
True.
What? Wait, did you just say that? Okay. So I don't understand it, but today they came out with the changes. So after all the craziness that's going on and people are upset.
Yeah.
And I mained a Mara and now I main a Jug Tank.
Yeah.
Those are pretty much the two classes that I've ever played.
Yeah.
Like
for real, not like story content.
Right. Well, even I've played a bounty hunter once or twice, but I've never actually learned a rotation for anything else but those two.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty passionate, as you can tell.
Right.
And yes, Chill, I want your points, but I need to let all this spice. We just left Corellia. We got to empty the ship of spice.
I got it.
Not Corellia. Oh, my God. Kessel.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So today, Guardian. Okay. So the saber throw is now standard across all Guardian disciplines gained at level 35.
Okay.
Well, no shit. You're a Jedi. Let's throw a lightsaber.
Right.
I mean, it's that should who is sitting behind the desk when they're like, we're going to take out saber throw. That's a good idea, right? For a Jedi. Hey, sniper, I'm going to take away your gun.
Right. Yeah. I feel like, isn't that one of the only ranged attacks you can do as a Guardian?
Well, you have
also?
a leap.
Yeah, you have the
but
leap.
That's it.
But that's
it.
That's what I mean.
Or a dual saber throw if you're a Mara.
Yeah, but this is for Guardian, so I feel that's kind of important, no?
Right. So for me, I don't understand some of this, but all of the things that they're changing, and we're not going to dive deep into this. If you want the deep dive, please next week listen to Ootinicast because they are going to go deep into this. And I would definitely say listen because they're going to go way deeper than us. Anyway, for me, and then their key endure pain is now a standard ability for the defensive discipline, but not for the
offensive.
But endure pain is now going to remove all cleansable effects so that you're cleansed, which it is now. But I don't understand. Why? I guess I don't understand why they're doing this. But again,
Yeah, we don't have access to their, to their teams and figuring out why exactly, but there's definitely a big push towards reducing the number of abilities. Like there's been a lot of ability bloat in the game. A lot of people actually have like multiple full bars of abilities, and it is getting a little bit out of hand at some point. And then the question is like, how do they pare this down? Some of it I think is going to work better than others. Like I definitely thought I don't know about the current PTS so much, but the last PTS, when they took 3 like iconic abilities, like the Mad Dash and the Inure or whatever it's called, and then and Saber Throw, and you only get one of those 3. That felt really, really bad. That was like really nasty. So it's good that they're like kind of getting away from that and like bringing back some of these abilities, or there are better ways to reduce the amount of abilities in the game, and I think they're working on that as well. Where it's like some of the utilities, like some of the like if you've got like a heal cut ability, where it debuffs their potential to be healed for a few seconds, that doesn't need to be a separate ability. Let's put it with something else, like maybe another utility that like slows or something. So there's one button to push for utilities instead of 2. And yes, that's still slightly different. Like you still might want to, slow them and then you want to heal them, and that won't be available anymore. But at least that's a way of getting rid of some abilities without like, here's like the Mad Dash is like a crazy cool ability, and it's like getting rid of that for some of the Juggernauts and Guardians is going to feel really bad. So I'm hoping that like they figure out, like, because it's amusing that like the Mad Dash is like so interesting, and then Inure is like a really important defensive cooldown,
right?
But they're not playing around more with just getting rid of some of the offensive abilities that, it's like a lot of them are pretty similar. Like there's a lot of saber swings in the game, and I could see like cutting out 1 or 2 of those and putting maybe some of the passives that they have, or some of the interactions that they have with other abilities, and but you're still swinging a lightsaber.
Well,
right.
So going one step further, it says Guardian Leap, which is your leap, is now available at level 35 for tanks. That's it. Wait a minute. So what is the gap closer going to be for a DPS jug?
That doesn't sound right to me.
Let's see.
And they said defensive card. Like, how are you going to take away the leap from a jug? But the operative can still stealth out, and he can still roll twice.
Well, Guardian Leap is the defensive one. It's not the offensive one. So where's it saying about the regular jump?
Well, I thought the Guardian Leap is the leap.
The Guardian Leap is the leap onto a friendly person that then lets them take less damage.
See, the whole
that's why it's called
thing?
Intercede as well. Yeah, it's called Intercede.
Oh, yeah. Yes. So I didn't see that. So all I'm trying to say is I don't understand why they're purging. Like, I understand the ability bloat. It's very clear to me that the Jug and the Mara were the first ones out there because they're just like, throw them to the wind. Well, and who cares? Like on Max and Seema's podcast, they were talking about, well, so what? You're losing Mad Dash. It's not a big deal because you don't main those. And that's why I'm really excited. Like the operative players are not mad at all. They're like, this is freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we're losing some of our moves, but if you look at the moves we have, it's not that bad. And everybody's saying how the Jug is getting it the worst out of everybody so far. I'm waiting for the Merc because I feel like everybody's just waiting for that. The Merc and the Sork. I feel like that's where the opinions will go. And the other side of that, I don't understand, and this is such a minor thing. Why would they do this on the pub side when most of the population of the game plays on the imp? Is it just so people don't rage as hard when they see the names? Because I used Guardian Leap, and I thought that was my gap closer, not Intercede.
Right.
Because I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, but then they're doing operative sniper, so they're at least doing something on the Empire side. I don't know why they're choosing one side or the other. For all I know, it could be a coin flip, but I'm sure they have. I'm joking. I'm sure there's some reason, but I have no idea what it is. Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, there's definitely a big push to reduce the amount of abilities and the amount of actives, especially
right.
They're trying to make more things passive, put passives together and stuff like that. So, they're really pushing that. And then the question is like, how do they do that without turning a class into a different class completely? And it sounds like, yeah, maybe especially for you, Marcus, like the Guardian, they're not doing a good job, but apparently there's a way to do it. Like if they figured out a way that the operatives actually feel like they still feel like operatives, and yeah, they maybe miss this one ability or whatever, but they can play around it or play without it and not feel much different. Then apparently there is sort of a happy medium that they can find, and then hopefully they'll go back. And I know that they've already done this to some degree, where they've taken some of the early versions, and then like the next time it came out, then it was a lot less harsh. Like they're not making us do the choice between three different like really important or like really absolutely classic abilities, and then they're not doing that sort of thing so much. So it's hopefully this sort of feedback is working, because like if we are seeing these sort of changes, then we can eventually get it to a point where like they're still getting what they want, which apparently is fewer buttons to push, but still make people like feel like they're not getting a different class altogether. So, and it's interesting actually watching this process for me, because it's like this is a pretty big change to the game and overall. Like we talked on the last Ootinicast, like what they could have done is they could have done combat styles, because what combat styles ultimately is it's just separating the class story from your combat class. They're basically just taking all the combat stuff of your class, of your character, which is basically your advanced class, but some of your basic class. So it gets complicated, but basically anything that's a combat thing, and that's just separated from your class, from the voice actor, the story you see, the companions you get during your class story, that sort of thing. And then all that is just being moved around. So like so instead of a sniper, now I'm using two guns. I'm using a gunslinger, to use a simple version. But they could have left it there, and it would have been like a lot easier for people to kind of wrap their heads around, because we're getting it gets complicated, because now it's like, yes, you're separating the combat stuff out, and you can change that around, but also we're also going to make a bunch of changes to the classes themselves, so they're not even the same. Yeah, I kind of wish that they had like decided to do just the ability to move your combat styles around without making all these additional changes right away. Maybe make that for even just one or two mini .1 or .2 after the expansion, I suppose. But instead it's making things extra complicated, because like you have to figure out what's going on with your combat style, but you also have to figure out within that combat style, okay, this is how it relates to like a regular juggernaut or whatever. And now we got to figure out like, does this still feel like a juggernaut or not? And it's a lot to ask. So I'm glad that they're doing like a very long and very extended test server, because yeah, this is wild that they're even trying this. So
a couple things. My final point on this is my mindset has changed. Like I just was spicy, right?
Yeah.
You got full spice, but my mindset has changed. SWTOR has been the same for 10 years. And what I mean by that is it's been the same combat, the same everything for 10 years. Okay.
Right.
Now it's going to feel like a brand new game this holiday season. Why shouldn't we, like, as much as I'm upset about this, reading it on the piece of paper that like we're losing these things, but I'm saying let's just be excited. Now, if 7.0 comes out and it sucks and it kills the game, well, the game's dead. There's nothing we can do. But at the same time, why not be excited for the change? Because what if the game is so like I'm reading this through the lines. Like I've been saying this tinfoil hat forever. They're getting rid of these abilities because they're going to put this on the Xbox and the PlayStation. They've never said it. This is my tinfoil hat. I believe through and through this will be on the console at some point. Why? Because Elder Scrolls Online and Final Fantasy 14 are, and they thrive on the console. And you can play those two games with a controller. The other side of that too is if you think about how many people use a keyboard and mouse, everybody we know.
Yeah.
But think about how many people you know that use a controller.
Right.
A lot also.
And think about if this was on the Xbox dashboard or the PlayStation source. Who cares about PlayStation? If it was on the Xbox head store that says Star Wars The Old Republic, free to play. Yeah. How many kids would download this game?
Probably a lot.
All of them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So moving on. I'm excited for the expansion. I'm excited to see the new SWTOR. I hate seeing my moves lost, but I believe through and through, you can't actually test this because they don't have set bonuses. They don't have all the things you need to actually be able to test it because you're still at level 75.
Right.
And Chill, you've been around for 10 years. We're at the end of August, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
This, in my opinion, if it's not ready, delay it until 2022. Like, in my opinion, because this expansion, like we all know the game's not going to be playable on day one of the expansion. That's just every game that releases, right? Day one is always a shit show. It's nothing against BioWare. It's just the way it is. But day two on, if this expansion isn't good, it's going to hurt the game.
Right.
So look at Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga just released their trailer.
Yeah.
That was supposed to come out holiday season. They pushed it till spring of 22.
Yeah.
But they know that this product has to be good the day it comes out.
Right. No one's going to go back and play that.
Because that trailer, I am buying an Xbox for that to play it with my kids.
As you should.
Right. Okay. Moving on. In AIE news,
Tuesdays are our mandatory fun night in Star Wars Old Republic, where the fun is mandatory, but attendance is not. That runs from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we swap between the awesome, authentic to Star Wars, slightly gory Imperial side and the Sunshine Rainbows. You befriend all of the enemies, and they just go nappy nap time when you defeat them. Republic side. Also, Fridays are the place to be in AIE. So the first Friday of every single month is Master Mode Flashpoints. That is the most difficult Flashpoint variety, if you will. Flashpoints are like 45 to an hour long group content. The second Friday of every month is Hard Mode Training. So that is the medium difficulty, which is a lot more than medium. Operations and things. I think Marcus gets involved with that, right?
Yeah, I love. So last week we didn't have enough healers.
Yeah.
Or 2 weeks ago, so we just went to Gods from the Machine. We were going to do hard mode Tithe, but we just didn't have it, so we did story mode. It was still fun. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Last week for the achievements, I think I think they took the week off, but instead they did like the pet hunt on Mandatory Fun Night.
Yeah.
Or maybe that was 2 weeks ago. But anyway, and then the fourth.
Oh, hold on. Third Friday is achievement.
Yeah, third Friday is achievement hunting.
Yeah.
And then the fourth Friday.
Wait, did you say fourth Friday?
Yeah, it's the fourth Friday of every month. So that's tomorrow.
That's tomorrow.
Is the fourth Friday.
Do you know how many Fridays that is?
No.
It's 4. That's Friday, 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 and it's Mega, the monthly Epic Guild activity, where we'll sell you the whole seat, but you only need the edge. Friday. Tomorrow.
So when you're listening to this, if you listen to it on Friday, it's tonight. If you've listened to it, well, you'll hear us talk about it next week.
Yeah.
So tomorrow night, we're going to be doing Guild PvP. So we're going to go to the
player versus player.
We're going to go to the Rishi Stronghold to start. We're going to talk about the different PvP etiquettes. We're going to play a little bit of hut ball, teach people how to throw the hut ball. We're going to learn how to kill people, how to defense, save yourself, run away, all that stuff. And then we'll go into some real matches with just the guild. So if you're afraid's not the word. If you don't want to be trash talked by the chat, it's just going to be us guildies talking shit to each other about our own match. It doesn't count for anything, but it'll be a lot of fun. And we'll probably do that for a little while, and then we'll go dive into something else. But tomorrow night, Guild PvP.
And if all this sounds fun to you, go to aie-guild.org, get the Discord link in the top right-hand corner of the website, and ask for a guild invite. Whether or not you play Star Wars: The Old Republic or any of the other games that we play, we would love to have you.
All right, and we have so we're going to have our typical break.
Yeah.
But we're doing a little test after the break sound. We're going to have a little commercial. So stay tuned for that. And after Nick uses the bathroom, we'll be right back.
Hi, this is Dr. Gameology from the Gaming Persona podcast, and I have some exciting news for everybody. We just had our first guest on the show, Dr. Nick Yee from QuanticFoundry.com and from so many other places in the world of psych research and video games. And we had an amazing conversation about motivations for play and gender bending in the way we play MMOs and other style games. We would love for you to check us out on all podcasting platforms. Download, listen, and most of all, continue the journey.
Jeez, Nick, hurry up. We're trying to finish this podcast.
And we're back. So today we are chilling with Chill.
Oh, my God.
We're diving into all the crevices of his giant refrigerator that is the content he creates. So...
Oh, my God.
That one's straight out of the database.
I'm out of here.
First things first, I know you've talked about it already on today's show, but could you just give us a quick breakdown of your 2 different podcasts?
Sure. The first podcast I was ever involved with is the Ootinicast, and that started in 2011 on the run-up to SWTOR's release. We actually did launch a couple of months before it actually did release, and we were actually working on the podcast for a few months before that. It's always been 2 co-hosts, and Tio and I were the starters, and he's actually still slightly involved. He's sort of my tech backup guy. Like when things go wrong technically, he's still there, stuff like that. So he still keeps his hand in a little bit. But anyway, it's always been 2 co-hosts. It was Tio and myself for years. And then it was Dr. SWTOR, who is now known as Dr. Gameology, and he's got his own podcast now. He's doing some fun stuff too. So check out Dr. Gameology. You can follow him on Twitter, and then from there, it's easy to find his podcasts. And now I'm with Kitty, and Kitty's awesome too. And it's been a lot of fun to have all the different co-hosts, and Kitty's just a great guy too. So that's been awesome. Ootinicast has always been, it's like half just sort of us being ourselves, talking about the game and what we're doing in it and what we like about it and what we're worried about, or what, all that sort of stuff. And then half like news, like we try to provide, everyone with sort of a nice simplified update of what's going on without having to like dive through, what the devs are doing and everything else. There's, and that's the Ootinicast. We've been doing that for a long time. We're on episode 422 or something like that. And then, yeah, go ahead.
No, what I was going to say about, Ootinicast, that was part of reason why Nick and I have this show.
That's true. I forgot about that.
Yes, because I guested on your podcast. I reached
Yeah.
out to you and said,
Right.
"Hey, I'd love to talk with you guys." And you're like,
That's
"Perfect. Come on next week."
right. Yeah, it was fun.
And
It's true. Yeah. I appreciate that.
and I remember I was so nervous and you guys made me feel at home. And you know when it clicked, when you know things go right, is when you
Mhm.
get a message back that said, "Hey," a few weeks later, "Hey, you want to come back on the show?" Shit,
Yeah.
yeah, I do.
I remember that. Like, you got a second invite?
Yes. And you know, and that's where the content creation for working class nerds started.
Right.
And then it just grew from there. But, you know, I want to dive deep into Ootinicast real quick before we
Sure.
jump into the next podcast. What's it like having a podcast for 10 years and having your original co-host leave?
Right. So let's see. I think Tio, gosh, I didn't like, it's like I never really noticed. It's like even though I knew it was going to be important when he left, I never really like took a mental note of exactly when it was. So I would have to actually look back on, but it's about half and half, I think, in terms of time. Although more episodes with him because we were doing the weekly thing rather than the bi-weekly thing for most of the time with Tio. Yeah, when we changed, when that happened, and it sort of was I don't know how it felt for listeners, but for me, I knew it was kind of a long time coming because even when we were first putting together the podcast, Tio was even saying back then, like when we were talking, because we actually had little conversations about like what is a podcast to us and like what is a gaming podcast. And one of the things one of the points he came to a couple of times was that, because he had listened to a couple of podcasts where the co-hosts were no longer playing the game, but they were still making the podcast. Like the podcast was big enough that they were, that there was a community that they wanted to keep together or whatever, and maybe they were making money or not. Ootinicast is pretty low budget. We have a Patreon, but that's like it. And but anyway, and it was clear to him though that like listening to some of these other podcasts where like they had kind of gotten away from actually playing the game, but they were still putting out the podcast about the game, felt very wrong to him. Like that was like something he didn't want to get involved with. And so he did give me like a lot of warning, like I'm playing a lot less and I'm starting to feel a little weird about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So fortunately I had some heads up and some warning, and it did feel very weird. And then the question is like, do we just go ahead and shutter? Cause we could have, there's nothing stopping us from just saying, hey, this is Tio and Chill and we're just going to stop. But I still was enjoying the game, and I was still, doing things in the game. And I still wanted to do the podcast. So, so that did feel very weird, and it was a bummer at first, but but I totally get it. I mean, he, had done so much for the podcast, and, like he was not only was he like the tech guy, and kind of still is in a way when he needs to be, but also like he did the news back in the day. Like I've done the news for a long time and it feels very natural to me now. But for years that was like his corner that he enjoyed doing that. So I had to take over that part of it. And also when he left, that also meant that I needed to start editing the podcast. So I knew that in continuing the show, it wasn't just a question of, it wasn't just a question of doing the same thing, but having a new co-host. I was going to be doing a lot more by definition. Like I would be doing the news. I would doing the editing of the podcast, the actual audio. And I knew that was going to be a big thing. And that freaked me out actually for a while, because I have no background in that. Like that's not a background that's not something I've done before. I like technology and I've been around computers a long time, but I'm not a programmer. I've not, I've not done anything sort of like that in terms of, my career or anything like that. So it felt very weird and very scary to actually go forward and then continue the show, and then actually, have to edit it and put it together and make sure it got out okay. And Tio does help with that, like I said, on the back end. Once I have it edited, he actually puts out the podcast. But that part's pretty easy. If you have a podcast, that once you have the edited file, and it's ready to go, then just actually getting it onto the website is relatively straightforward. And then there's a feed that puts it out on the podcast programs.
Right.
So that's pretty simple.
But
anyway, so then there was this whole weird transition period where I had some guests on to sort of see how the co-hosting might go. And then
you had a lot of guests on.
It was fun. It was fun to do,
and it showed how awesome the Ootinicast community is, because nobody in the community wanted the show to end, and everybody everybody stepped up, and you had so many guests that were just happy to be there and during that transition. And then I remember myself, I was on the show and Doc was there, and I said, Doc, you should be on Ootinicast all the time. And he's like, you think so? And you guys just made this awesome connection, and bam, there was your second co-host.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't that idea didn't come from me. It's here's a message, you should actually reach out to Doc and see if he wants to actually be your co-host. And I remember I was thinking, wow, because I knew he was interested, obviously we'd had him on a few times and everything. And he was always really good. And it's not like I wouldn't say no, but I knew he was a really busy guy too. He was getting, getting his PhD. He was starting work at this is the transition period where he was he's gotten his PhD. He was getting into work related to his actual PhD.
Right.
And and I was but he said yes. And it was really great. He's a lot of fun. We still do the mind trap because that was his idea. So, and that's something I found was really kind of one of the best things about the transition, the first one, but also the one to Kitty. And that's when you bring someone on, there's a lot of momentum when it comes to doing a podcast. You get used to doing a certain way. Your audience is used to doing it a certain way. And because of that, changes tend to be either put off or just not thought about, or maybe, or they're very gradual. You make a little change here and then. But when you have a co-host change and it's such a big change to the podcast, it really is an injection of fresh energy and ideas. And it's not like Tio wasn't, a great co-host. Of course he was. He was all the way through. Even when he was getting really busy and, wasn't finding time to play SWTOR, he was still putting the actual energy into getting the podcast out and making sure that it was really good. And, of course I appreciate that. But there's just something in the nature of getting a new co-host where there's just new ideas and new points of view. And because of that, he started doing the mind trap. And for his point of view, he wanted to do the psychology of gaming, which is his thing. That's his whole thing. And so he started doing the polls, and that became the mind trap. And we would discuss the polls and what happened with them. And it was always from, or almost always, I think a couple of them were more generic, SWTOR ones. But they were all psychology point of view, and it was a lot of fun. And I learned a lot, and it made me think about the game in a lot of different ways that I had not before. Because when you play the game a certain way, as I do, you don't always think about the many different ways that people engage with games. For some of them, it's almost like a therapy, and it's something they, that they almost have to have in order to keep themselves sort of emotionally on an even keel.
Of course. Yeah, of course.
It's absolutely that way for a lot of people. But also people engage with it in different ways. Some people have physical difficulties and they have to find their own special way of playing the game. And so there's a lot of interesting questions that that Doc and I went through during those episodes. And then he got busy. This is the theme,
Right.
And then we found Kitty, and Kitty was great. He'd been a guest as well, and he was, and I mean, Kitty's just the best. And he also brings like his own fresh perspective. He brings because he's like a pretty down to earth guy. He has a regular type job, but he's also really knocking out of the park with the streams. Like he's got a really good following. It's a whole community around his streams. He's having a ton of fun, and the people who watch him are having a ton of fun. And so having him on the show has been great too. And it's just, yeah. So every time you get these changes, like it really, it changes the flavor of the show, and that's always going to be a risk, but it's so far it's been okay. And, the people who like the Ootinicast have been following us through these changes, which is great.
So selfishly, we love Kitty. Kitty is so awesome. He brings such an awesome vibe everywhere he goes, right?
Absolutely.
And he's so awesome. But now selfishly, I think he is like third time's a charm. He's the best host you've had because you guys play the game the same way, in the sense of you both do the class stories and you play story content and stuff.
Right.
But what's awesome is when he starts talking about Darth Barris doing this, you're like, oh my God, I hate it when he does that and this, and you guys like feed off of each other.
Right.
And that energy shows up, and you're like, wow, listening to it, and it makes you excited to like, oh shit, I'm going to go play this class story because I want to see this part.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, we both do play the game that way, and we both have sort of this like crazy detailed knowledge of the class stories. And even so, I always, every time I play it, I still get to like these whole chunks that's like, oh my God, I forgot about this character, that has this little arc on Balmora or whatever. And it's like, oh yeah. And then it's like, revisiting a friend, and it's like, you get to see this person again. It's like, oh, that's right. On the trooper story on Balmora, like the resistance guy just hates your guts. Like he's an a-hole to you the whole time, from the first time you see him until you leave the planet. He's mad you're there. He's mad at the Republic. He doesn't like troopers because you remind him of the Republic, and yet he's being kind of forced to kind of help you out. And it is amazing. and there's like, and yeah, it's true. It's like, and I could talk about that guy, and I know that Kitty would remember exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. So that does really help. Kitty's just, and also just Kitty as a human being is he's just a good guy. So yeah, so it's been a lot of fun with Kitty. I like him too. So.
He's totally one of my favorite people on this planet. So tell us about your second podcast.
Right. The second one is Cryptobiography, and we're 218 episodes in, and it's a bit strange. It's actually it's a two-headed beast. It's actually like a hydra with one of the heads burnt off. So it started out with the idea that I would be talking to folks and just like getting them to tell me their life stories and having like talks and interviews with them. And that worked for a while, and we ended up with getting, I think, about 60 episodes in. But increasingly, I was finding it harder and harder. I'm just not connected enough. Like I'm not like right in the middle of like a big city. I'm not like, that's just not, unfortunately, I just don't have the kind of connections to sort of keep that going. And so I was having to fill it in with other things, like from my own stories from my own life. I must have told like how many stories from my own life. I started doing some other fun, but kind of like not really related things. But still, I'm pretty proud of like a lot of those episodes. Like there's some really interesting interviews that you can go back and listen to. There's some people that we talked to that that were a lot of fun. I say we in like the editorial sense. It's really just me.
Sure.
And so I changed it because I had always had the idea of what if I just did a fictional podcast, and Cryptobiography works fine as a fictional podcast name, I think, especially since I tend to do a lot of like fantasy and sci-fi type stuff anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So Cryptobiography sounds fine for that. I must say though, like doing Cryptobiography, and now that I'm doing, I've done the occasional, one-off episode thing where I've just talked about what's going on in my life or whatever. But for the most part, I've been very good about actually doing like new fiction. There's like new fiction every week, and most of the stories tend to be about like somewhere between 5 and 10 episodes long. Right now I'm on a real jag. I'm like 14. This is going to be the 14th episode of this one story. So it's almost getting to like novella length, but
Right.
It'll be done reasonably soon, but it's got a ways to go.
But with the show, it started off as one short story, like a one-off series, but then your I don't know if you would call it writing progression, but your progression in your writing started to grow, and you got into more detail, and then you got into more detail, and then even more detail, and then it was just too much for one episode. So then you started breaking it up into like 2 parts.
Right.
And then there's one distinct show or episodes I remember. It was a guy and a little girl, and I think it was like the zombie apocalypse or something happened. And, like they ended up together, and it was almost like, her family was gone and his family was gone, and they almost became a family together in this house.
Right.
And it was such a wild ride, because having a young girl come into your safety net of like, this is our home, like my home, and I have it set up perfectly, and I follow a regiment.
Yeah.
And
right. He had set up something because like, it was obviously in a very dangerous situation, but he had the sort of the way that he had figured out this way that he could survive, and avoid the being killed by the zombies. But then, yes, now you have this other person in your life who is a lot more vulnerable. And yeah, it was just basically that was a lot of fun to tell that story. And also, I've always just been a zombie guy anyway. Like I saw Dawn of the Night of the Living Dead. Actually, I'm pretty sure it was when I was like a little kid, like way too young. Like I think I just caught it on TV one night. And ever since then, like once in a while, I will have a zombie nightmare. Like all that night will be like me running away from zombies. So like, there's definitely like something about zombies that definitely that just hit me on a very deep level. I think it's just, the whole idea of, for me, I mean, there's different, and the cool thing about zombies is like, there's different aspects of the zombie story, that you can go at. For me, the interesting part is sort of the breakdown of society, and then trying to figure out a way to live, in this sort of like crazy new dynamic where, resources are running out, nothing's being replaced. A lot of the things that we would have used to survive normally are just gone. There's no electricity and so on, or there's extremely limited electricity to like, batteries, and the batteries are running out, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So one of the interesting things for me about the podcast, well, there's a couple of things I would say. One is that I've always, over the course of my life, like I was an English major, and I actually kind of focused on writing, creative writing, and that was in college. I've always found it hard to write outside of like out of some sort of structure, by which it doesn't have to be like a class necessarily, but it just has to be like me. Like there's a couple times in my life where I started writing again, and it was like on a more than very irregular basis. And every time it was because I told someone, okay, I am just going to give what I write to you once a week or whatever. And it didn't even matter necessarily if they were going to read it or not, but as long as I knew that I was going to give it to them, it was enough to keep me writing. And I wanted to get back into that because I had gotten away from it. It had been a little while since I had done any sort of project like that. This is also in a period of time where I had lost my wife, and I was just kind of looking for, things to like, what do I want to do with my life? What do I want the rest of my life to look like? And by doing this podcast, it gives me that mental excuse, which is all I need to keep writing. And like anyone who does writing will tell you, like, the hardest part is just to keep writing because it's so easy to not write. And for whatever reason, it's just very hard to sit down and make yourself write on a regular basis. So that was actually one very important part of it for me, is just because I knew it had worked for me in the past. If I did a podcast, if I did turn Cryptobiography into a fictional podcast, I knew it would be enough to keep me writing, and it has been. And then the other thing is, it makes me write in a very specific way, because I can't tell a story there's certain story styles and certain ways of also writing, but also editing, that you cannot do this way, because this is episodic. And this is how a lot of the great, like, 19th century novels were written, like Dickens basically wrote almost all of his stories by writing a chapter, and then it would get published in a magazine, and then he read another chapter and it would get published in a magazine. And when you do it that way, and I'm finding this out myself, you have to commit to like parts of the story, and whatever you've committed to in the past, in the first episode, you can't easily go back and change. You can't just say, oh, okay, that character doesn't work, so that has to go away, and then we're going to edit all this together and it's going to be something different. You can do that if you're just writing a novel off on your own and you're just going to submit it at the end. If you're doing it episodically, whatever you commit to, you're sticking to.
Yeah.
Otherwise, how do I go on to the next episode and say, okay, well, we're 14 episodes in, but remember this like whole story arc that was like 5 through 7 and involved like some important characters. Well, we're all changed. You can't do that. I can't do that. So I have to it makes it, but to me, that's actually kind of the fun, and it's actually kind of the challenge too, because it's like, I have to tell a story in a way that actually makes sense going forward, and yet also commits to whatever I've already put down. So it's been a lot of fun. I tend to write sort of like, some of it's, you could just sort of generally call it fantasy or sci-fi. Some of it is more sort of horror related, like the zombie stuff. I would say ultimately, like, a lot of it is very, I would say, like Twilight Zone influenced. Like, there's a sort of a common theme when I look back on my stories, is a lot of it is I'm writing something with an idea in mind that I'm not letting the listener in on completely originally. Like, there'll be hints, and then it'll be bigger hints, and then there might be some like even things that kind of like hint away from it, and then it brings it back, and then I actually reveal it like towards the end. That's become like a thing for Cryptobiography, like, and which makes it actually works really well for the title of the show, because crypto meaning secret, and then biography meaning life story. So I do tend to like have an idea, like, okay, what happens if a character does this? Like, what would happen if I have a character who woke up and like, couldn't remember, anything about his life or whatever, that's not a story I've written yet, but like, if I did that, what would that look like? And then I don't necessarily from chapter, from paragraph 1 say, okay, and John woke up and all of a sudden he couldn't remember anything. Instead, I would write it from like, you would get it from a like a different point of view. Like, you would get like a lot of confusion and like someone, and then you would have to figure out, oh, okay, this guy just woke up and just doesn't remember his life, and now he's having to work his way through it. So that, yeah. And it works pretty well with the episodic thing too, because that way I have an idea of where we're going, and then it's just a question of getting there. So it's been a lot. It's been a lot of fun. I love doing it. And yeah, I hope people do check it out. There's a lot of stories now. We got 218 episodes. The first 60, like I say, are like the more of the biography ones where I'm interviewing people, and I still think some of them are very much worth listening to. In fact, most of them are worth listening to. And then, and then it's stories after that. So we've got like 100 and whatever, 40 or 50.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Which day a week do those come out again? I think you said it earlier.
So
but...
the Ootinicast currently, it's every other Tuesday. We actually record it live on Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific, so that's 7 Eastern.
Yep.
You can actually listen live, twitch.tv/Ootinicast if you want to listen to it live. Once that happens, we are also recording it using OBS. You can actually record the audio and the visual. So we record it as well. The audio version is also our emergency backup. And I have had to use it a few times, unfortunately, but whatever, it's all worked out.
Yeah.
But we also put that out on YouTube, and then I do the editing of the audio, and that goes out the next day. So that'd be Wednesday, every other Wednesday. The exact time kind of varies, but usually it's kind of early to midday. And then Cryptobiography is Sundays, and I usually aim for 9 p.m. Pacific, but evenings on Sunday is what we're going for. So, but that's every week. That's not every. Ootinicast is currently and has been for a while now every other week, and Cryptobiography is still every week. So there we go.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I got to ask, what is it like doing? Obviously, you're super duper involved in podcasting, but what's it like both streaming and podcasting, like mixing the two together?
Right. It's fun. I would say it definitely, what it does for me, like more than anything else, it's a lot of fun. I mean, I wouldn't be doing it if I wasn't enjoying both the podcast, but also the streaming.
Of course. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. You're not going to do it if you don't love it.
Yeah. But for me, it's like one of the great benefits of doing the stream every day is it makes sure that I'm kind of staying on course, because with the Ootinicast, it's like if I got away from SWTOR for even a few days, I feel like I would like start to like it would be a very weird feeling at this point. I really like being able to play SWTOR every day, at least a little bit. Sometimes it's it's pretty short, but usually it's a few hours. And it keeps me sort of on track. Like there's no one who can look at the Ootinicast and say, okay, well, they've been playing it for they've been putting it out for 10 years, but they've really been playing it, for 7 or 8, and then now they don't really play it anymore. That has never, that's not us, and that never will be us. And that, like I say, when Tio couldn't play anymore, he decided it was time to go, and I respected that. And it's the same for me. It's like, if you're listening to the Ootinicast, you're definitely listening to someone who actually gets in the game, like regularly, every day, basically. So, so that for me, that's like a big part of it. The other nice thing about the stream is that throughout my life, I mean, it's weird. It's like I'm not exactly super introverted, but on the other hand, it's not like I go out and I'm not a big party guy either. I guess I'm kind of in the middle somewhere. But the nice thing about streaming is that it does keep you in contact with people. Like I see a lot of the same people in the chat regularly. Also, when we're doing the Ootinicast, we see a lot of the same faces, and it's great. And that really, ultimately it's the people connection that, even though it's online and some people might consider it tenuous, but it really makes all the difference for me.
I understand that completely. Making that balance. I love streaming because of the social aspect of it. Pretty much all I do is work, kids, family, podcast, and stream. That's it. That's my life.
Right. Yeah.
And I love being able to like chat with the chat and do all those things. So, as customary to working class nerds, who is your favorite Star Wars character of all time?
Whew, boy, that's tough, because I mean, I was born in 1970, and in 1977 I saw Star Wars, when it was released, basically. And then the second time I actually saw the movie is one of my earliest, like, sort of firm memories. Like, from that period of time, especially since a couple years after that, we actually moved away from, I was born in San Jose, California, and we ended up moving to Idaho. And because of that, a lot of my early memories of California are very fuzzy because they didn't get sort of reinforced, you know? But one of the ones that I definitely that I actually remember is that second time we saw Star Wars, because it was in a drive-in, and we went there, and I remember kind of hanging over the back seat, between my parents, and my sister falling asleep in the back seat, and she still doesn't like action movies. She likes other kinds of movies.
She good old Notebook.
She just fell right asleep in the back seat at Star Wars, and just watching this amazing movie just unfolding. And it's still an amazing movie. Because of that, it's like, even though there's a lot of great characters later on, I still go back to the original trilogy. And especially, I think, even though the original Star Wars is great, I think Yoda really does it for me. Like, I really, I appreciate like how, because he is a mentor character, but there's, especially in Empire, there's a lot of play, like especially when he's meeting Luke, but he's not telling him who he is. There's just, he's completely wackadoo, and I love it. I just love that. Like when he's screaming mine, and like trying to get the little object away from R2. Like, oh
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's even that great meme recently. It's like, it's like Yoda and Dooku, and it says, show me the best Yoda fight, and then it's like Yoda and the Emperor. No, I said the best Yoda fight. And then it shows, Yoda and R2, and he's beating him with his stick.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I would say Yoda, great character, and really held up. One of the characters that kind of holds up really well through the prequel movies. I really liked him in Last Jedi as well, with his his bits about the greatest teacher failure is. So yeah,
that's a great answer. So what is your favorite game of all time? I think I might be able to guess.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, I basically, I've played, other than, some phone games and stuff like that. I mean, and I've tried my hand at a few other games, as well, here and there, and I certainly played a hell of a lot of WoW, and I like the original KOTOR, but SWTOR is special to me. It really is. And I do, if I'm in a MOBA mood, I definitely like League, and I do occasionally even stream it. League of Legends is a fine game too, but there's really nothing quite like SWTOR. Ultimately, the combination of it being a really solid just MMO from the basic point of view, but also it being completely voiced, so that you actually get like these really amazing this really amazing acting and writing and story development. I mean, the amount of words that are in SWTOR is just mind-boggling. And I mean, it still has the Guinness record for the most voice acting in a video game.
Well, and I'm going to add to that. So when Holly Fields, the voice of Nadia Grell, came on the show, I think that was like episode 56.
Oh my God, that's so long ago.
Exactly. Well, when she came on the show, she talked about it in like, I'll use our break sound. Geez, Nick, we're trying to do a podcast. When we were doing that, she said that like 7 times, and we picked the best one.
Right.
She basically said that's what it's like voice acting. So think about all those parts of Nadia. She probably said each sentence 10 or 15 times.
Right. She'd be like,
she's a pro.
She'd put the stress on different sections. Be like, geez, Nick, hurry up. Let's try to finish this podcast. Or like you change the stress in each one. Geez, Nick, hurry up. You know what I mean? You change the stress.
Right, because it changes the tone. It changes the assumed area around the conversation. Like if you say a certain way, it means that you're angry. If you say it a certain way, it means you're bored or you're frustrated.
Right.
Yeah, that's good stuff. And like Darren DePaul has talked about how like there was so much Valkorion that he actually like developed his idea of the character and how he played the character like over years, and and then they brought him back, the one last time recently for sort of the final bow. But yeah, it's amazing how much stuff is in SWTOR. So yeah, there's really nothing quite like it. I mean, yeah, I played the hell out of WoW for a number of years. That's how Tio and I met, and that was great. Original KOTOR is wonderful. One of my favorite games of all time. No one ever knows, but it was called Sun Tzu's The Art of War, and it was from like 1988 or something like that. It was like a little war simulation. I must have played that for like, I don't know how many hours, even though it's basically dots crossing the screen.
Well, it is funny how some games just capture you.
Yeah.
For me, like that game that you're explaining to me was Excite Bike. Like I could play Excite Bike still to this day. Like just because like all you do is like just and you drive up and down the tracks and it doesn't get old.
Yeah.
Oh shit, I hit the dirt. Let's keep going.
Yeah. Right.
And yeah, in terms of like replayability, like Dungeon Keeper and Dungeon Keeper 2, man, I played the hell out of those games back in the day. Yeah. And the voice actor, if you've ever played Dungeon Keeper or Dungeon Keeper 2, he has this really stentorian narrator voice. He's like really like evil because you're supposed to be evil. Like you're the dungeon keeper. You are the dungeon keeper, so you're actually making traps and stuff for people.
Wow.
And then the good, quote unquote, good guys come in and you're supposed to kill them. It's really awesome. And but it has a really great voice. And the awesome thing is that voice actor is in SWTOR. He's also in SWTOR. He plays. I think he does. Like most people, he actually does a couple of little things. But the main thing is on. It's on Alderaan, and he plays someone that I think it's the warrior. Yeah, it's the warrior. Goes kind of has to deal with. He's in the main Alderaanian Empire base, and and he has this great voice.
I think I remember that character.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and and it was so great to recognize that guy.
No kidding.
So yeah.
So I was just gonna say, Chill, we have an important question for you.
Okay.
It's similar to the favorite Star Wars character. Everyone on the show has to answer. It's very important. It tells us a lot about you. What is your favorite ice cream flavor?
Oh man, there's so many good ones. The one that I seem to be going back to over and over again, so I'm going to call it my favorite, is cookie dough ice cream, man.
Wow.
Great choice.
Yeah.
Marcus,
there's just something about it. It's like, first of all, I like chocolate ice cream too, but I like the fact that it's usually based on vanilla. Then it has like chocolate chips in it usually, and that's fine. But then you get to like these nice chunks of cookie dough, and it's just every time it's amazing. It's like I can't get over how awesome it is, especially since like, you're kind of not supposed to eat real cookie dough anymore. You're supposed to actually make it into cookies because
salmonella.
Salmonella, unfortunately, is a thing. But because they're putting in the ice cream, I'm assuming they figured out the salmonella thing. So I get to have some cookie dough and also ice cream at the same time. It's pretty awesome.
But there is nothing on this planet like a good waffle cone with good golden vanilla.
That's true too.
I'm just I guess I'm a boring human being.
No way, I love vanilla.
I just love vanilla. I like how it's creamy and like there's no chunks in it. It just goes down your throat nice and smooth.
Yeah.
I agree. Texture is a giant part of ice cream too. I mean, looking at cookie dough, it's the whole package. You've got crunchy a little bit with the chocolate chips. You've got like the chewy part with the dough, and then like the smooth ice cream also. I think it's a super popular flavor.
I had cookie dough not too long ago at an ice cream place, and like it must have been like the bottom of the barrel that didn't get mixed well. There was like one piece of cookie dough in it, and I was like, there wasn't even chocolate chips. I was like, so I basically got like sweet cream vanilla, which was fine.
Yeah,
right.
but
it wasn't what you wanted.
Right, exactly.
There's expectation there Oh boy. Yeah, that'd be rough.
So
Right.
Chill, what is one of your favorite stream and podcast moments?
Oh, okay. Um, let's see. Stream it is hard for me just because, like, when you do it 7 days a week, it's like everything runs into each other. It's just really. There's been a couple of like really big raids from you, from Kitty as well, and it's just fun. Like I have a chunk of people in there, and then boom, it's like, all of a sudden it's like dozens and dozens and dozens of people like just chatting, and it's awesome. I love that. Yeah, and then you have to decide, like, okay, are we going to do something different now? Are we going to like stick to the same thing? Because like a bunch of people just came in, so like, do you want to switch to and do like Galactic Starfighter, or or keep doing the story but fill in people in what you're doing? Because I'm often doing like weird cosplay things where like the character can't do certain things or has to do certain things. And anyway, yeah, that's always fun. So that's kind of, I know that's not quite as specific as you're looking for, but that's what I'm going to go with.
Okay.
And for podcasts, I would say the moment, it was actually a couple of episodes like overall, but like this is when Tio and I were on the show, we're doing the show, and then we had Doc on, and we helped him get his get word out about
the dissertation,
about his dissertation, exactly. And we actually helped him get he literally had like, because you have to have like 50 or so to have any kind of like because the other people who are doing psychology dissertations, we're also doing the similar sorts of things where they have to, you have to have a certain number of people answering your questionnaire or whatever it is in order to have any sort of validity statistics wise. Mm-hmm. And, so most people are like barely getting what they needed for any sort of statistical validity. And he had like 10 times as many people answer his question, and then he came back, and then we discussed all the different things that he had found, and it turns out like people just get on, and then they just like do outfitter, and that's like, that turns out like that's a huge thing. Like, you don't, as like an old style gamer, I don't really as much fun as I have like dressing up my characters, and obviously I do cosplay characters, it blows me away, like how for how many people that is just the main thing about SWTOR. Like going in and putting on different outfits is like huge, or decorating their strongholds to match their characters and whatever is huge. And and then learning like different things about how different personalities and how they go into the game with them. Yeah, it was that whole process was just fascinating for me, and it was really really exciting to see like the Ootinicast folks just diving on this and getting and helping him out, and it was really cool. That was awesome.
So, where can people find you, Chill?
Right. Well, I spend mostly I'm a Twitter guy. I do a little bit on Facebook, and that's also where you can find the podcast. So it's pretty easy. If you want to follow me personally, it's Brandon L. Starr. But I do tweet out whenever I put out a cryptobiography. It's cryptobiography on Twitter, and then we do Ootinicast as well. That's at Ootinicast, and and it's pretty similar if you actually want to go to a website, it's ootinicast.com, and you can listen to cryptobiography at cryptobiography.com if you do. But most people do listen to it on, podcast listeners, and it's on Apple Podcasts, which means it's automatically on like 4 other services as well. So it's probably on whatever one you're on, but if you can't find it on that one, for sure, it's definitely on like Apple Podcasts and some of those big ones like that.
What are you guys talking about in here?
Find out next episode of
Working Class Nerds.